Did you know that there is an actual fear of paint color? Chromophobia. There's nothing really to be that scared about. I'm Jason Morse, and this is It's All by Design Extras. Today, I'm going to take you through how we picked the paint colors for our house, the reasons behind it, and hopefully give you some great tips when you're out searching for paint for your new home, or for any project for that matter. So come and join us, we'll tell you more. One of the main questions I've gotten from several people is about how did I choose colors for our new home? And it can be very daunting when you think about so much wall space that's going to be covered by paint to really come up with something that's going to make the home feel cozy and inviting throughout, but not one continuous color. Now, some people love the idea of taking that one wall color and just repeating it in every room. And in some ways, that's what we've done, but we've taken a few colors just to accentuate certain rooms, create moods, and create different styles based on the design ideas that we know are coming up. So here is actually the entire palette for the house. There's a total of 6 actual wall colors, 1 trim color, and then 1 stain color. The stain is going to be in all of our accent pieces throughout the house, whether it's the wood cabinetry in the kitchen, posts, ceiling details, all of those will be 1 consistent stain. Then of course we took 1 white color, which was Sherwin-Williams Pure White. Pure White is a really nice tone that's still a good crisp white, but it's soft enough that it works with some of your off-white and linen tones. It's just a really great neutral white, and I tend to use it a lot in my designs. The main color that we used, and you'll see it here behind me, is Light French Gray by Sherwin-Williams. It's a good sort of chameleon gray, if you will. What's great about it is in certain rooms, you're going to get blue undertones. In other areas where there's maybe a little bit dimmer lighting, it's going to become a little bit green. In other areas, it's going to be a really pretty neutral gray and even to a charcoal tone in some areas. The color is perfect because it works with so many different undertones in fabrics, rugs, woods, just a great color to use throughout your home. The biggest thing we did was add texture to that same color. So you'll see here, in order to keep it in a large space from not being just flat gray wall, we added this board and batten texture. And this is very simple to do and can be easily done at home yourself with just simple 1x4s. These have been nailed to the walls on the studs. If you wanted to go a little off center, you may want to use some construction adhesive and adhere those to the wall. Then just caulk and paint. Really great way to add a texture to the wall for an inexpensive way. But this being our foyer wall, we wanted to make sure that it had a little bit more interest. It's easy for a wall like this to get lost in the shuffle if it were just a simple painted flat wall. So the texture really gives it something a little extra. You'll see that we actually took that same idea and carried it over into the stairwell. This is probably one of my favorite spaces. I would say about 2 to 3 years ago, I came across a picture on Pinterest of all things that had a really, really similar stairwell to this with the board and batten, the iron, the very simple, clean handrail, and I just loved it. And when I was designing the floor plan for this house and decided I wanted to do an open stairwell, I knew that was my go-to. It was just in my head. And of course, since then, it's popped up 32 places. But this board and batten detail gives some interest to a very tall, what could be very boring space. There's not a lot you can do in an area like this. Obviously, you could do large artwork. You could do a lot of different things. I didn't want to clutter this space up with that. So we just went with the great textured boards. Again, same light French gray, and even you could probably tell this looks much lighter, almost a cooler gray in this area because we do have so much wonderful natural light coming in. So now why don't we talk about a few of the other colors that we're using in the house besides the 1 consistent gray. If you follow me down here, this is the guest bathroom. And in this room, we're using a color called Uncertain Gray. Now this is another one of those tones where in here, it's coming off very blue-gray, and I absolutely love that because I wanted a more of a blue undertone. but it can definitely in other areas become more of just a steely gray. It's a beautiful color, very versatile, and it's again just one of those that if you look at our palette here, overall, everything sort of shades into each other. So this is our light French gray going to the uncertain gray, which just brings more of that blue forward. We do have the one accent color, which is called Eventide. You're going to see in a moment, it has a little more green. Then to our darker Storm Cloud, and then to our darkest Navel. So you'll see the gradation of the color flow throughout, which really makes the house come together and flow from top to bottom. And for me, that's really important when you're picking paint colors for your home, is to make sure that you are having a consistent feel. No room feels disjointed or like its own little corner. You want it to feel like you could take something from any room, pick it up, put it into another room, and it would just make sense there as well. So that's what paint can really do for you, and by doing a more consistent palette. So this color you'll see repeated in our powder room and also our downstairs bathroom, so that all the bathrooms sort of have that consistent feel. And then you'll see the other colors more as accent throughout. So if you come through here, this is the only room that is a slightly different color than the others. This is our Eventide, which is a slightly more green-blue. It's very reminiscent of a color I used in my last house by Benjamin Moore called Kentucky Haze. Love that color because, again, it's one of those that it can be gray, it can be green, it can be blue. So whatever you put with it, it just gave it really this interesting character. Now this room is one of the few that was actually defined by things we already owned. So this bedroom has the bedroom furniture we had in our previous house, has a beautiful upholstered chair, which is a real similar tone to this. And when I was picking out wall colors, I actually had thought about trying to go with the gray in here, but I wanted something that had a little bit more richness. And the Eventide really pulled that off. And then I found a stunning drapery fabric you'll see during install that brought this color in with that same pure white background and just a little bit of warmth that ties in the wood together. But still, because this has that blue undertone, it really works well with the overall palette of the entire house. So even though it's only used once, it still feels very cohesive with the rest of the colors in the house. So now we're going to show you on the other side of the house where we used a few of the darker tones for accents. This is the mudroom area directly off of the garage entry of the home. Here's a really good example of how to use a darker color as an accent, and we're doing that against the light French gray. So this is our Storm Cloud, this one here, and we wanted to define this wall because this is going to be a great area to drop your bags, hang your coats, and move on with your day. Great little drop zone area that we built in here, and I wanted to define it without painting this whole area that dark color, because as you can see, it's rather small. We only have 2 overhead lights. Too much of a good thing could have really closed this space in, and I don't think it would have felt as cohesive because you wouldn't have had the consistent color coming from the halls adjacent to it and the laundry room in that really pretty light French gray. But we also use this color in another application in the master bedroom. So follow me. The master bedroom had an evolution as it was being built. Originally, the plan was to do all of the walls in here that wonderful dark storm cloud color, and the ceiling was just going to be a simple 2 wooden beams and white. However, once we started doing the tongue and groove in the rest of the house, we really loved it so much that we wanted to bring more of it in. What that did was bring a little bit more dark into the room, because that walnut stain that we're using will definitely bring a lot more depth to the ceiling. And I didn't want the whole room to feel as cave-like. So what we decided to do was this really great accent wall in the dark blue to set off the wood bed and the lighter bedding, but then keep the perimeter of the room again in that light French gray, as we know the primary color in the house. That will also keep the lightness of the windows and keep that view going. But we did this board and batten detail on here to give it a reason to have an accent wall. Because it's a very large space, and I think if you were just to put the one color, it would have been fine. But giving it the architecture of the board and batten really defines it and says, this should be a different color. There's a purpose for this. So here in the master bathroom, we actually went with the same color, the light French gray, as the master bedroom. Because it was joined together, I wanted to make sure that walking in from one room to another, it felt very cohesive and very much like the same room from the same area. So we went with the light French gray. You have a lot of contrast in here because we did go with this darker tile floor, which you'll see here in the shower. We have this wonderful charcoal tile underfoot. Keeping the walls light was really important so that it didn't feel too dark. And then we have these great wood vanities which give you that warmth and contrast with the lighter tone. Now this sort of acts like the same idea as the master bedroom ceiling. So where you would have the stained wood above, you have the stained wood accent below. Again, just balancing the light and the dark and making sure it does feel completely cohesive from room to room. Last but not least, the darkest of all of our palette, Navel by Sherwin-Williams, a really beautiful dark rich blue. We used it in the lower level of the house. This is actually going to be sort of a game room. We have our pool table. We're going to have a wonderful media center back here. We'll have a card table. We'll have a dartboard. So it's really to be a fun space. Now again, I wanted it to feel cohesive with the upper level, but still have its own sort of personality and character. Now what we did in here is make the back wall, the entire back wall, from trim all the way to the door, the same color. Just painting that out so it disappears into the back. That way, once we put the TV unit here and we have the lights dimmed, this becomes a really great space to watch movies and relax and cozy up for a really fun weekend night. Now I did carry that same color blue into my office. In here, we have great natural light from the French doors on that side, but I wanted to have this deep, rich wall because this is going to be a large statement wall for the room. We have bookcases, we have a gorgeous credenza, some really great art. It's going to be really stunning when it's done, and I wanted to have that deep, rich backdrop to it, just to give it a little bit of contrast, and I think it's going to feel good with the rest of it. Now we kept the walls same in that light French gray for the rest of the house to keep it light, because it is still a workspace at the end of the day, and the lighter wall is going to be against the desk area. That way you get more light reflection in your actual workspace. Now what we did in this corner here, we have a small wet bar that we're installing, and we picked out this fantastic wallpaper by York Wall Covering that feels very much like that same accent blue that we're using everywhere else. Just to give it a little pattern, a little bit of fun here, we're gonna have a large mirror covering up a good portion of it, but still want to have a little bit of interest in this area, but also tie in that navy in this small niche. And in areas like this, you can have a little bit of fun with them. And especially when you're doing a wallpaper, because it doesn't take a lot to do a small space like this, so it's very easy to do yourself. So I hope that some of the tips of what we did in our home help you when you're selecting colors for your new home. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back soon with more great details.